Hello, and welcome to another episode of Leader Generation brought to you by ModApp. I'm your host, Tessa Berg, and today I am joined once again by Alan Wizemann. He is the Chief Digital Officer at Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. And while you may think that Southern Glazers is a distributor of beverages in the United States, we are going to jump into how Alan is leading the digital practice at Southern Glazers to redefine what it means to be a beverage distributor in 2025 and beyond. Alan, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks. Good to be back, Tessa.
So it feels like it's been a while, but it's actually only been 3 months.
3 months, right?
And yeah, we covered off on a lot in our first conversation. And I think the feedback we received is people were very inspired by your boldness in
Mm.
change leadership and pleasantly surprised to hear all the ways that Southern Glazers was investing in data and technology to improve the experience for their clients and customers. And it's really something leaders are still struggling with. Like, but before we jump into your framework, the lessons you've learned, where you're at, I would love to know, give us an update. What has happened at Southern Glazers in the last 3 months, especially as it relates to proof and some of the other enhancements you've made to how Southern Glazers goes to markets and serves its customers?
Yeah, it's great. Well, thanks for the feedback, first of all. For the last 3 months have actually been pretty busy, which, isn't anything sort of abnormal here. We've been really focusing on a lot of improvements. Our big, I guess, season is coming up, which, October, November, December, which we just call O&D, mainly because that's the largest selling period for us because of the holidays and everything for the year. And so we've been really gearing up and leveraging a lot of the things that we've been building throughout the year, not only expanding on the technology and data platforms that we have, but also just features for our customers. Some of the biggest really are around just improvements that we're doing around the proof platform. And so what we've learned around a lot of the AI products that we have to make our recommendations better that we spoke about last time, a lot of the experiences that we're building to allow our customers to effectively find products easier and shop better, all coming to light. And so we've got, although it sounds small, a new homepage coming out, which is really what our customers see after they log in. That's very personalized to what they do, including a lot of the newer recommendation systems that we've built. That homepage also allows us to do a lot of really great flexible personalization. And so depending on what customer is coming to the site and what they're looking for, we can help them really build orders quickly, help find lists of products that they might not know about, because the hundreds of thousands of SKUs that we have can't really be discussed live from our sales consultants. So we're really trying to make sure that the proof platform unlocks a lot of the relationships that we have with our sales consultants and the customers, really expose those products to them. We've done a lot of work as well on mobile development. So we've got a new app coming out for our customers that is way beyond just sort of a new version or a different version of what proof is. We'll be actually including even more personalization down to messaging, understanding, making sure that customers understand delivery timing, which is pretty important. What's on the truck, what they're getting in their next orders, and also insights of what we feel they actually should potentially use within their business based on what we know about them, what we sell, how they're purchasing products from us. Internally, we've done a tremendous amount of work, not only from just looking at how the platform operates, how we measure what that operation looks like and how we're unlocking a lot of those features, but there's some large scale projects that are happening across the company to really modernize and for that matter, revolutionize what we do from a supply chain standpoint. And so we've got two warehouses now live with what we just call Lumina, which is really bringing in a lot of technology into those warehouses so we can get better at not only understanding what our products are, where they're at, but also to how we can effectively build deliveries better, from using AI in a lot of our routing to also using drones that actually check our shelves and help find where things are. You can imagine warehouses of million plus square feet. They're stacked 10, 12 pallets high, or pallet shelves high. It becomes quite a journey sometimes to make sure that's all operating and working. And we've seen really great success in that. We even brought in some robotics that actually help a lot of the pick, pack, and shipping. ultimately to really free up the manpower that we have there to expand our delivery hours and timing, and also just efficiency and operations. From a customer experience standpoint, we're also looking at how getting closer to a lot of our markets and how they're looking at launching either innovation products, how we're expanding into, if we get a new supplier in markets like we've recently done in California and New York, to help them drive sort of a unified sales message through our merchandising and digital marketing that happen across Proof and the platforms that really tie into what they're doing in the field. And it's been quite successful just in the programs that we've run there. But we're still looking across multiple new opportunities to really push what we can do for our customers. More importantly, when everybody sees sort of the industry is a little soft right now, it's a little slow. Proof is still growing at a record pace. We're actually eclipsed our goal for this year. We're on track to beat it, and it's nice sort of being that green beacon in the industry now. And I think a lot of our customers are actually seeing why, because we're really focused on what they need, not just what's best sort of for the business. And we're trying to make sure too that we bring the technologies that we're building to light through the lens of how they use things rather than just building something to see if somebody's going to use it. And that goes back to just how we build and how we look at effectively each initiative or project in a different way.
That is definitely a lot. And I think I was getting some visions of Amazon warehouses. Like I feel like people associate technology and technology advancements with how Amazon distributes goods and goes to market, but not so much what feels like a very traditional business,
Mhm.
beverage distribution. Give us a little bit of insight. What is Southern Glazer's overall vision? Like, what is the why powering all of this innovation?
That's a great question. So we have something that internally we just call our 2030 vision. We've talked about it at a couple conferences, and we definitely make sure that, it's understood by our suppliers and our customers. But ultimately, it's to be the leading hospitality, sales, logistics, and insights provider. And a lot of what's underneath that a lot is the technology and everything we have to do from, supply chain to managing data to managing customers to getting what they need when they order it. It was funny. I was joking around with someone the other day. We were probably doing next day delivery before Amazon. A lot of our
Oh,
customers get trucks every day. And so when we look through just how we have to do that, if you walked into one of our sort of next gen warehouses, I would say they might even eclipse some of the technologies that are used in large scale, direct to consumer led companies like the Amazons and Targets and Walmarts. Just because we have to move at pace. Our customers move at an insane pace, and it's not like we've got a tremendous amount of places to deliver to, but we definitely have to make sure that there's a lot that has to happen for our hundreds of thousands of customers that are out there. And if you look at the diversity of just our inventory, we've got some things that move on a daily basis, and we've got some very unique, allocated items that sit within our shelves that are very, very hard to find. And juggling all of that and that diversity can be quite difficult, especially when it's different in every single market that we're in. And so we have to use technology to really unlock a lot of that for us. But to get to that vision, to understand, to making our sales better, to making logistics better, and to really driving the insights for the industry is where we want to be. And the foundation for all that is what we've been going after. And we're starting to see some really great, I'd say, sort of cohesion or collaboration between those big points of the vision because they all sort of work together to unlock customer value.
and I love that your emphasis is on customer value and prioritizing what you build to solve challenges that the customer is feeling. But this has to be like a ton of work. Like,
Yes.
it's like, yes, we want to solve this problem, but you named off like four different large initiatives. How are you getting all of this done? And how many people are working against these initiatives, either inside Southern Glazers or with partners?
I mean, just on the digital and technology side, we've got 600 to 700 people that are working across all these main projects, products, and experiences that we're building. We definitely have gone through, I would say, some growing pains when we started the digital transformation just to align roadmaps, figuring out where opportunities are to start either supporting things differently from a digital lens, and even ways of working. And that probably was the most painful part of it all, because when if you look at before digital sort of existed here, very project led, very project focused, and much like other companies, when that happens, you get things that are really built in silos, and they don't really think through of how they can go beyond sort of their due date, how they're maintained, how they're effectively assessed and measured to provide more value in what ultimately they were trying to deliver. And I still see a lot of companies struggle with that. When we shift into the digital model, which is really focused around durable teams that are focusing on very specific either products or initiatives that they're responsible and goaled against their success and what they're measured, you see a big shift in actually how this all works together. And when roadmaps are actually aligned and we understand where either foundationally, something could change underneath us by large scale initiatives of like ERP platforms and transformations, or if we've got, different markets changing by bringing in more suppliers or different brands, we also have to be able to react very quickly. And when you have a durable team model that's under a ways of working that's very close to what a technology company does, which we here just call digital, it actually kind of strengthens the muscle to do that. And so we're able to really respond faster, and the understanding of what's happening across the company becomes much clearer, almost to the point of what we call a single pane of glass. So we can see everything that's sort of going through because we've unified all our tools, we've unified all our processes from, budgeting to how we track time to how we track even the teams and their success. And without that foundation, it would be very difficult to move forward because you could have a breaking change from a project that could effectively, take down either parts of our systems or even negate some work that teams are doing. And so it was pretty important to get that in place first. But after it's in place and starts to mature is when you start to see speed and value come pretty quickly.
I have to admit, like, I just had to Google durable team model because I was not,
Yeah, it's usually called like a product team model.
yeah.
Effectively, it's a team that is, fully funded, it's dedicated. They're not really tied to like a due date or when a project's done. They're specifically put on a task or a product and just run with it as far as they can. And their goaling is specifically built to drive the success of the product itself. And so it could be increased revenue, it could be increased efficiency, it could be anything from making sure that deliveries happen faster or call times are shorter. It varies wildly, as you can imagine, but it's that specific team that's made up of all the disciplines that are needed to sort of get the job done. And so if you look at any team that's sitting on proof, as an example, we'll say on cart, like we have a cart and checkout team. That's all they do. That's all they focus on. And they watch it on a daily, if not hourly basis to make sure that features and functionality they introduce is matching their goals. And a lot of the goals that we have across those teams look at customer satisfaction and how we're actually providing better value for the customer, not just driving more revenue or driving, company growth. Because to me, those aren't accurate goals. Like I usually joke around that you shouldn't have a revenue goal for anything because that's sort of the outcome or side effect of doing something else right. And so what we see across a lot of what we're building and really starting to take shape in a lot of markets is the value is coming out of the tooling and the way we're measuring. And then the outcome of that value is we're increasing business. Proof is doing exceedingly well. We're already above our goal for this year, and we're looking at growing even more. And when you look at the industry right now, as soft as it is, we're a bright, shiny green spot because we're definitely increasing not only the value we deliver, but also just the value and the services that we're bringing out to the customers and into the company itself.
You, I knew you were going to make a big statement, and I just like you made some big statements in our last interview, and you just said something that I think definitely made me stop and be like, ooh, you shouldn't have a revenue goal for anything. I mean, that feels scary, counterintuitive. I was just on a call with our own R&D team, and I'll say, like, for agencies and services, when we start to invest, and we're investing a lot in AI, for us on that team, it feels, uncomfortable
Yeah.
because we are very used to being paid for the value we deliver right now. And you're proposing that in an age where the vision is bigger than just shipping a product, but it is actually solving challenges for the people receiving the product and making their lives easier and making it more personalized and more scalable. And that there needs to be indicators that you're solving that challenge first, and then you know that revenue will come.
Hmm.
How do you prioritize like which of those problems to solve first, or what is the bigger sized issue, customer challenge? And it feels like you have a lot going on in parallel, but I imagine you've actually stacked these in priority and are continuously kind of changing where you invest time and where you shift. And what does that look like?
Yeah, just to clarify too, like the company always has revenue goals, but I mean,
Yeah.
from a team and a product perspective, is where I sort of throw the flag on, mainly because it's a trailing indicator. You don't really see impact immediately off of revenue, but you can see impact immediately off different ways to measure the teams. And when you know they can equate to things that will create value and revenue and everything down the road, is when they're aligned really properly. We do prioritization a little differently than I think a lot of companies probably do today. It's not something that's totally unique. I know there's other companies that do it, but we will relook at our entire prioritization every quarter, especially across all of our digital products, because we have a lot of flexibility and agility built into the model. We can pivot them pretty quickly, and so we do these sort of impact reviews every quarter to make sure that what we're working on is right, what we're looking at from a team perspective and how we measure them is also right. But the number one thing that we look at is time to value. Like, what can we get done the fastest that would provide the value for whatever that team is going after? And that doesn't necessarily have to be a revenue. It could be customer satisfaction. It could be ease of use. It could be platform speed. But the idea is that whatever that value measurement is on the team, we will prioritize stuff that effectively they can get there the fastest. It's not always the thing that wins. I think it's probably 80% of what wins, because there's also some really long tail, either foundational or large scale changes that have to happen, which take up that other 20% to effectively unlock future time to value projects that have to happen. And so it's a constant process that needs a tremendous amount of care and feeding. But when you have that and understand the different metrics and measurements you're going after across those teams, you can start to see prioritization a little cleaner and a little easier, because you know very quickly on a quarterly basis if something's working or not. And so if it's not, you can either dive into it and fix it, or you can get something else to actually go in front of that with the teams and then have them see if their time to value is actually there. And it's a discipline that's incredibly hard to build into companies that either have a very short-term vision and understanding of what they want to drive, or a too long-term frame of a goal. And so a lot of the times where I would come in and effectively when digital transformations start, is you sort of attack those first just to make sure that things are moving in the right direction. And a lot of the times, and this is not unique to us, you run into the sunk cost fallacy. Like, oh, we've been working on this for 3 years. We've got all this money into it. We got to get it out the door. It has value. By the time that much time has gone into a project, the value has been erased, because a lot of the times companies just look at either the cost of the vendor or cost of software. But when you look at the amount of time that it's been to create that project, how many people have been involved in it, and then who actually has to use it after that amount of time, it's going to have to be changed again after 2, 3 years of development. And so most of the time, I'll stop those and we'll break them up into parts to see what truly has the value of whatever problem they were going after, and changing that solution to drive to much faster either adoption, value, or release. And it's something that, I have had to do several times in my career, but it has probably the largest impact, especially when you can get, senior executives, CEOs to effectively take a step back and go, ignore what you've spent, which is a very, very hard conversation, and look at what you were trying to get out of it. And like, let's see if we can still get there with how the project's running, or if it's time to sort of take a pause and see if there's something else that can be done. It's a very uncomfortable conversation. I've had hundreds of them, but ultimately they start to show that if you don't have the right framework and measurement to really get to that value, that making those decisions can become quite important pretty quickly. Because when you
Mm.
do see that there could be problems, or you have that sort of sunk cost fallacy and start to erase it, you can start to move things much quicker and actually see value much faster.
Yeah, no, I've been in a couple of those conversations and it is really hard, especially when it felt like at the beginning the vision and the value equation was so clear. And something that I've seen lead to projects going a very long time. Well, there's a few things. One, you might not have the right people with the right skills on at the beginning, meaning you have experts who really understand the challenge and the core problem you're trying to solve. They're awesome when it comes to alignment to the vision. They may have been an expert themselves, but you don't have the data, the architecture, the scalable solution folks up front. And so we start with sort of a bloated feature set and
Yeah,
not fully understanding like what data and what technical expertise it would take to bring that to life in a consumable time frame. And the other one I see is just like people having a nephew in their basement with a great idea or their wife had an awesome idea. I mean, it always blows me away when someone is being very sincere in that, well, I had this experience, in a different realm and this app can do this and I think our app should be able to do that. And
yeah,
then you're like, you add that in, and you're going off in
yeah.
another direction. How do you manage those risks when you're looking at trying to, I mean, what you're really talking about is balance. You don't want to be too skinny, you don't want to be too long. So, what are some methodologies you sort of manage those conversations and those risks that enter in early in the project?
Although this is not possible with everything, it's sort of a, I wouldn't even say a manifesto, but it's something that I follow, or at least try to get everybody to follow with a lot of fortitude, which is start small. Yeah, what's hard, especially in companies that get very large like ours, is you'll have ideas that turn into business cases that turn into huge projects, and they sort of know what it's going to be before it's even built, and that's sort of the first warning sign that I see. And so it's really just think about it in a small way, like how can you prove that either the business case or the idea has merit. And one of the things that we do here, which I've done before, is effectively piloting. Build small teams just to see if there's true value there. Pilot with a customer, a couple customers, a couple users, and just interview them, talk to them, see if it's true. And this could be from an internal piece of software to something that's used by a company's customers. When you do that, you start to show not only proof in what's going after from a business case perspective, but also you start to see who the experts are and who you can truly create as a subject matter expertise or expert within that small scale project. They're the ones that can probably scale it out and think a little differently. Most of the time you'll see that in good product leaders where they want to test and learn. It's big phrase that you'll hear a lot in a lot of tech companies. Most large scale companies don't adopt that. They still have the large scale project, which took a year just to even figure out, and then a couple more years to build. And in the fast pace of technology these days, that's already antiquated. But even by the time you get it out the door, obviously there's a few things that don't fall into this, but a majority do. And I've seen some companies and just some of the peers that I've talked to, they're now approaching even the things that you'd think wouldn't fit in that model, like changing out finance systems, changing out warehouse management systems in the same way that it shouldn't be a big project. It should be a small, let's just see if it works. Let's just demo some software, or let's see if we can build something ourselves. And most of the time, those are wildly successful compared to the large sort of big bang approaches.
Yeah, I agree. I know I said this before the call, but I was literally just meeting with our product team right before this, and we were trying to figure out how to approach some really, really big challenges. And I love that mantra of just start small and test and learn. And another pull quote that I just think is so powerful is to be cautious when someone already knows what it's going to be before it's built.
Yeah,
That
we had a fun joke at a company I worked at previously that if you took all the business cases and added up the sort of final slides, which shows like how much either revenue or potential growth that that project would be, the company would be 10 times the size. Because they're never really true. It's all part of the game of getting things funded and all that fun stuff you deal with. But I just find it a lot easier, rather than just spending the time doing all that research and building those business cases. Is just start. There's a tremendous amount of people at companies that actually can start to participate and move it forward. But when you build it into the model where you have effectively flexible resources that can cobble together real quick as a team and say, okay, run after this for a couple of weeks, see if there's something there. If it is, like, let's dive into it and then let's actually turn it into something.
Yeah. So some of the things that you've launched, do you replace things people used to do? Like in the warehouse example you were giving, or maybe they can't fly like a drone, but they were definitely trying to get their arms around the inventory coming in and out. And now through the combination of robotics and software and tech, your operations are flowing in a way that humans only could not have done. But it does introduce other challenges and other types of risk. How are you monitoring to make sure, like, once you've rolled out a new tech solution, a new process, that it is working as expected, and if anything, getting better and better as it learns and trains itself?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things that we've done, if you looked at them from the outside, you would think that they were done to drive efficiency on like, reduction of headcount or, looking at things that, oh, we're replacing people with technology or robots, but that's actually not the case. And we don't even look at that as a value measurement. What we look at is how effectively we can optimize time for an individual, because most of the time, a large part of their day is fighting with technology that it doesn't even work, or they could be doing better things that provide more value to the company. One of the great examples I have there is that we brought in a lot of technologies and built a lot of stuff in house just to help process documents, support emails, things that used to use human intervention, but the people who were doing it, I would say, were way overpaid to do that kind of work and could be doing something that's much better for the company. And so when we look at things like, the drones in the warehouses, or bringing in, machine learning to read planograms of stores, it's not to replace the people that were doing it. It's to really unleash that from the burden that they were dealing with so they can focus on things that actually provide value to the company. A lot of the times too, especially from a supply chain standpoint, it's to look at how we can actually improve what we're doing for customers, not necessarily, making operations cheaper or, driving efficiencies to lower costs. I mean, you bring in drones and robotics and, things that are completely automated, they're not cheaper than people, right? They can just do things faster, better, or with lower error rates. And so when you take kind of look at a different lens of that through either that customer value or ultimately safety and things that you can do in a warehouse, it gives you a different sort of sense of purpose around a lot of that work. Because one thing that is really unique to Southern that I truly value, and one of the things I love working here, is we really value our people, but more importantly, we value the relationships that we've built, because it's a relationship business. We're in hospitality, and so anything that we can do to free up our sales time, our delivery drivers' time, even in the warehouse, to actually focus on making that relationship stronger and better, giving salespeople more time to actually do those interactions so they're not punching in data every couple hours. It provides just a better service. And so when we take a step back and go, to that time to value conversation, it's never like, oh, how many people can we free up to like not have anymore? It's what busy work can we take away? What things should be automated? So the person that has that job should be doing that job and not all the other things that they have to do to effectively get done first to then do their job. And so it's a different way of looking at things. And I think because of the culture here, it's a lot easier. because of the relationship structure and that sort of relationship and hospitality culture that we have. But I don't think it's unique to any other company that's out there. I keep reading headlines. Actually, there's one today from Salesforce. They're like, "Oh, we replaced 4,000 engineers with AI." It's like, well, they probably thought about that in the wrong way. They could have had those engineers do something different. And when you start to look at augmenting a lot of what people do on a day-to-day basis with technology like that, and you can replace them, it's like they were probably not doing the best job to begin with. Like there could be other things that they could be doing that really look at value considerations, pilots, other projects, other things they can go after. And so a lot of what we do, especially from a customer standpoint and how we can support them, is all around that philosophy is, how can we remove that busy work, the stuff that drives people nuts on their day-to-day jobs so they can truly do what they should be doing.
Yeah. And I love that vision. It's one we share as well, is it's not about replacing people. It's more, or it is all about how do we maximize the value we deliver to customers? Because we're all passionate in whatever profession we're in about what we do. I mean, we spend so much time at work, and I always have this list of things I wish I could have done. I wish I could show the client this. I wish this would work this way. And
Yeah.
that's really the fuel to productive innovation, as opposed to, oh my gosh, there's this meaningless task. I'm going to automate it, and then that person is gone. It's like, no.
Yeah.
It's,
It's like, no, you just remove that so now they can focus on more stuff that is better, right? Or
yeah.
at least brings them more enjoyment. I don't think anybody wants to just punch keys for a couple hours to get whatever data they need into something so they can then do their job. That's the stuff we want to get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I've given this example on previous episodes. I started in, I guess my little career in a warehouse, company my uncle owned, using a toothbrush to clean, repurchased and refurbished keyboards. And there is nothing more motivating to advance your career than standing for hours and scrubbing keyboards. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to do it. And if somebody was like, hey, will you work with us to figure out how to do this differently so that we can serve our customers faster, better, smarter? My hand would have been up first and be like, absolutely. My wrist is
Yeah.
telling me.
There's actually a quick little story that I heard coming out of one of the warehouses where we brought in some of the automation around the like pick packing and shipping because not everything we send is what we would call a full case. Like we break cases, and so someone could order like 2 bottles of something and 3 of this, and that used to be all hand sorted. In a lot of warehouses, it still is. But part of what we're doing with a lot of the automation is to do some of that with technology. The guy that effectively was doing that in one of the warehouses that we brought technology in is effectively the subject matter expert. Like he knew where to put boxes. He knew where he could effectively stage things so he could make his job faster. And so he became part of what trains all the systems and then was then responsible for actually redesigning the staging areas and he elevated his career. He's now effectively managing all that for some of that work because of the knowledge that he had and how he, single-handedly sort of figured that out himself. And I love those sort of examples because if you look at what some of the automation and technology can bring in, you know, tech is dumb out of the gate. And so you have to really make sure that there's always that people aspect in it. And it's in those sort of relationships that exist between that, especially in a lot of what we see in supply chain, it's vital to have a lot of the humans in the loop, whatever we call it, to make sure that it actually works the best way it can, and then it's continually improved upon. And you have to have people there to really figure that out.
Yeah. Well, Alan, we are at time, but I really enjoyed this interview and thinking about digital transformation and AI projects and initiatives as a way to redefine how people work, how they show up for their clients and customers, how to be faster, better, smarter. I mean, you've given so many great examples on how it's really an unlock and not a replace. So thank you so much for your time. And if listeners wanted to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Well, I'm pretty much all over the place, like LinkedIn. They can also just drop me an email. It's pretty simple to figure one out, but I have a shortcut for it, which is just Alan, ALAN at sgws.com.
Perfect. And if you want to go back and look at this transcript because you need to pull some nuggets or copy and paste the transcript into ChatGPT and ask for some summary points, I highly recommend you do that because this is a playbook that all companies need to start looking at, which is not just about cutting costs, finding efficiencies, but finding that right balance, prioritizing on time to value, and really focusing in on how you can use AI and digital transformation as an unlock to improve the relationships and careers of the people that work at your company, as well as the relationships with your clients. So you can find that at modop.com along with all of our other episodes. That's modop.com. Until next time, Alan, we might do a part 3. We
Sure.
will talk to you later.
Thanks very much. Always a pleasure.